Hi, and welcome to Pep Talk with me, Mr. Pepperell. In this episode, I'm thinking about how we generate our electricity. By the end of this episode, you should be able to tell me how we generate electricity in power stations and which fossil fuels we burn in power stations.
So, pretty much all the electricity that we use is generated in power stations that burn fossil fuels. And by fossil fuels, obviously I mean coal that we can see here, oil that I've got in my cup, or natural gas that I'm burning here. Now, you'll realise that burning these fuels transfers the chemical energy into another form. But how does it actually become electricity? Well, let's work our way through this diagram and find out, and it might be useful for you just to note down the numbers and what is happening at each stage. Well, at the first stage here, our fuel, in this case coal, is introduced to number 1, which is the mill, and that grinds up our coal into a fine powder. And that powder is then blown along this pipe here, number 2, and it's blown along the pipe into the furnace. Okay. Obviously, it's burnt in the furnace and the resulting heat is used to boil water here in these pipes number 3. So the water in these pipes is boiled and obviously turns into steam. And the steam produced travels along these pipes, number 4 here, until it reaches this thing here called the turbine, which is basically like a big fan. Okay, and what happens here is the steam under pressure comes out onto the turbine and it drives that turbine round. Now, the turbine is connected to here, number 5, the generator. So when this turbine starts to spin and starts to turn around, what it does is it starts to turn the generator. And when the generator spins, kinetic energy, that's the movement energy of the generator, is converted into electrical energy via a process called electromagnetic induction. Now, we're going to cover electromagnetic induction in a lot of detail in P3, but we don't need to worry about it now. We just need to understand that that's what's converting the kinetic energy into electrical energy. And this electricity is then transmitted to our homes along these wires via the system of wires that we call the national grid. Okay, now the hot steam then comes back down this pipe and we've got something here called a heat exchange. Okay, so the hot steam, which is really hot in here, transfers its heat to water flowing through this pipe, and the warm water then flows over here to this cooling tower, these enormous cooling towers that you see here. That's the sort of thing you normally see in a picture of a power station that look like they've got smoke coming out the top, but that's actually steam, because what it's doing is the steam is condensing back into a liquid, and the cool water then comes over here to cool down the water, which is going back into the furnace for the whole thing to start over again. Now, in some gas-fueled power stations, burning gas is actually used to spin these turbines here. A hot jet of burning gas is used to turn the turbine. Okay, so what you're doing basically is cutting out the water step here, but the principle's the same. What you're trying to do is get something to spin the turbine, which in turn turns the generator and generates the electricity. So all this sounds pretty great, but there are actually a couple of major problems with the process of generating electricity from fossil fuels. And the first one is that the fuels we use, the coal, the oil and the gas, are what we call non-renewable resources. Okay, and this means that they are finite. It means they're not going to last forever. They're eventually, our natural supply of these resources is going to run out, and then we won't be able to use them anymore. Okay. Also, another major problem is that one of the products of the process of combustion, or the burning of these fuels, is a gas called carbon dioxide, shown here as CO2. Okay, now CO2 is what is known as a greenhouse gas, and CO2, along with other greenhouse gases, contributes to the process of global warming, which is an average increase in the global temperature, and this has a huge impact on our environment. So although using these fossil fuels is a really good way to generate electricity from the chemical energy that's stored up within them, they do come with their disadvantages.
So that's everything we need to know about generating electricity from fossil fuels. Any problems with that, don't hesitate to tweet me at Mr_Pepperell or email me and I'll get back to you ASAP. Thanks for stopping by.